You heard me talk a lot about the wildlife ordinance lately, and that's because it's so important. As I've said before, this is the single greatest threat to the LA housing market we have ever seen. And while the repercussions would be felt far and wide, let's talk about who would be hurt the most. Well, senior citizens would arguably stand to lose the most if this ordinance gets passed. Think about it. Imagine people like your grandparents who have owned their home for several decades. They've paid their taxes and they've been responsible homeowners. Perhaps the home that they own is older and outdated. Thus, the majority of the property value is in the land and the future potential of that property rather than in the existing home itself. Now, let's take this one step further. Let's say that you could build 5,000 square feet on that house today, which would make it worth a certain value. If the wildlife ordinance were to go into effect, the buildable square footage could be cut in half, maybe even more. So what do you think would happen to that value? It would probably get cut in half as well. Now let's take it even one step further from there. Let's say that your grandparents have a reverse mortgage on their property, as many elderly people do. What happens if their property value goes down by 50%? It could invalidate the reverse mortgage. Now, I know this may sound melodramatic, but there are real life instances like this. I have met people living in the impact zone that are suffering from these exact same sort of circumstances. One woman in particular whose husband was dying of terminal cancer. She was borrowing money against her home to pay for his health care that the insurance wouldn't. Now, unfortunately, her husband passed, but she racked up debt by borrowing against her property, thinking that it was worth of a certain value. If the wildlife ordinance goes into effect and that property value gets decimated, she has to file bankruptcy. Is that fair? The ramifications of this are disastrous. Please reach out to your council members listed below in the caption and ask them to delay any hearings on this until it can be given further research and consideration. Thank you so much.